Hey everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the most iconic comedians of our time, Jim Carrey. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. Your need for acceptance can make you invisible in this world. Don't let anything stand in the way of the light that shines through this form. Risk being seen in all of your glory. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. A man without a purpose is a ship without a sail. You can't wait for opportunities to come. You have to create them. The difference between talent and skill is intensity. Talent is the gift. Skill is the grind. The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. I'm not a fan of fame. I just like to make people laugh. The best way to predict the future is to create it. I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of not trying. The only way to fail is to stop trying. There's no such thing as a failure. There are only setbacks. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. It's better to be a failure at something you love than a success at something you don't care about. Don't let the fear of failure stop you from trying. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. You can never win an argument with an idiot. If you can't laugh at yourself, life is just not worth living. I'm not a role model. I'm just a guy who got lucky. I'm not perfect. I'm just me. I'm not a comedian. I'm just a guy who tells jokes. I'm not an actor. I'm just a guy who pretends to be other people. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a guy who's famous. I'm not a star. I'm just a guy who's shown a lot of light. I'm not a man. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of crap. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who's done some good things. I'm not a saint. I'm just a guy who's trying to make it. I'm not a genius. I'm just a guy who's figured out a few things. I'm not a legend. I'm just a guy who's been around for a while. I'm not a myth. I'm just a guy who's been talked about a lot. I'm not a mystery. I'm just a guy who's hard to understand. I'm not a paradox. I'm just a guy who's full of contradictions. I'm not a joke. I'm just a guy who makes people laugh. I'm not a fool. I'm just a guy who's made a lot of mistakes. I'm not a loser. I'm just a guy who's learned a lot from his failures. I'm not a quitter. I'm just a guy who's never given up. I'm not a coward. I'm just a guy who's afraid of heights. I'm not a pessimist. I'm just a guy who's realistic. I'm not a cynic. I'm just a guy who's seen the world for what it is. I'm not a misanthrope. I'm just a guy who likes to be alone sometimes. I'm not a recluse. I'm just a guy who prefers to stay out of the spotlight. I'm not a loner. I'm just a guy who's comfortable with his own company. I'm not an introvert. I'm just a guy who prefers to observe rather than participate. I'm not an extrovert. Thanks for watching.